And I think that there has to be some levels, some checks and balances from each and every country and anybody that says that they sight the moon and want to tell everybody about it. I think that it becomes very, very important that people take time to say, look, because this is Dean we're talking about. Just like the beginning of this whole class, we talked about the the need for us to develop and perfect our devotional acts of worship. And Ramadan is one of those major aspects of our worship. And one of those times, the fasting itself is the act of worship, but it's one of those times that begin an act of worship that really cannot be toyed with, cannot be taken lightly. People can't just say, well, we want it just because we want it. And it's over, but when we decide it's over, you know, we have to be people that are a little bit more diligent than that. And I think that this idea of because I think in Crescent Watch they said that uh, they are changing their policy measures because of the fact that the overwhelming majority of people in this country basically are from other countries. And so that being the case, those people are always going with the sightings based in their home countries or what they see happen in Saudi Arabia. And so instead of fighting that, they decided they're just going to go ahead and go with the flow. And I still think that that's incorrect. That's incorrect. They say, well, because we don't have any leadership here, then, it leaves the door open for these kind of issues. And I suggest and I submit that even if we had leadership, it would still be the same thing because people are going to do what people want to do at the end of the day. And so I just really feel as though that it's better for us to sight the moon in our own place where we are. And if they're going to follow the moon sightings from other countries, then the question is, they have to go a little bit further and stipulate which countries. Because the people in Nigeria might see it before Saudi Arabia does. So you're going to follow Nigeria? Or will you overlook them because they're black Africans and just follow the Saudis because they're Arab and they live in Saudi Arabia and, that's who we feel we should be following. If there's somebody in Spain saw it, you're going to follow them. If someone in Australia sees it before anybody else sees it, right? Are you going to follow them? So, who's citing, who are you going to go off of? And then what are your checks and balances to make sure that the people who say they saw the moon actually really did? And they're credible people. Because, again, this is our deen and this is our worship, and it cannot and should not be taken lightly, nor should it be anything that's played with, bottom line. And so, having said that, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Obviously, I'm waiting to hear from the brothers that are sighting the moon tonight, and those that are sighting the moon in other places, here, not only just in Atlanta, but in other places. And I'm going according to that. So I don't discourage you if you wish to follow the global sightings, because it is actually a position of the Hanafi school, the Maliki school, and the Hanbali school to go with global positions. And it's a weak position in the Shafi school. But the reality is that I'm going to be going with the sightings, the locational sightings. So if your desire is to follow one of the other schools of jurisprudence, I prefer you tell me that than tell me you're trying to do some garbage out of unity. We want to be unified. Let's unify around the Sunnah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's how I feel about it. So, okay, so you haven't seen it in the DR yet, so, mashallah. But yeah, brothers are sighting in this country, sisters are sighting in this country, so, alhamdulillah, it's getting taken care of. La ilaha illallah Muhammadan wa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Okay, so, last time we were in class, we were talking about wudu. We were talking about the sunnah wudu, and then we began talking about khufs and wearing khufs. So, one of the brothers asked a question about the being a time frame for wearing khufs. So basically, it is exactly 3 days or 72 hours if you are a traveler. So in other words, if you were to make wudu, and after you made your wudu, you put on your hoofs, and then you broke your wudu, and then you started wiping over the hoofs. At that point, you have from that point up to 72 hours, right? 3 days from that point to wear your hoofs, right? After which you have to take them off and then redo it. Obviously, if you need to make ghusl, you got to take them off, and then you can just start over again. If you are a person that's not traveling, then basically you only have 24 hours. Now, so now, when um, when one does wipe over the hoofs, excuse me, when one wipes over your hoofs, you are to, I guess I have to give you some foot action here. You have to wipe on both sides. It's not enough just to wipe on the top part. There we go. You can't just wipe here on the top part and think you've got your hoofs wiped. You have to take from the top and the bottom and wipe them. Right? So you're kind of doing a like that. Right? This hand on the bottom of the hoof, this hand on top of the hoof, wiping both parts. So you're actually wiping the bottom and the top part of the hoof when you're making your wudu. Come on. So we talked about those conditions. We talked about what conditions, what the conditions are to wipe over hoofs and or shoes or leather socks or sealskin socks or scuba socks and things like that. Right? We talked about the conditions for those things. We talked about the conditions for, I just mentioned briefly, the conditions for wearing them, right? And also how to wipe over them. I mean, that was a very simple section, but it's very important. And for those people, anyone who happens to been wiping over tube socks or wiping over dress socks and things like that, those prayers have to be made over. You have to kind of figure out how many prayers you've ever made in your lifetime that were over your socks, and you do have to make those prayers over. Why? Because you had an invalid wudu. And you say, well, I didn't know, and things like that. But see, now you do know. So the thing is that you do have to, and I've asked my teachers about this. I tried to find a dispensation for those people, because like there was a brother who had, even myself, because when I first became Muslim, that's what I was taught and that's what I did. And so I had to spend a lot of time making up a whole lot of prayers. It was rough. You know, I don't. If they say it's a position in the Hanbali school, then have them produce the evidence. Don't let them. Right. So here's the thing: if anybody ever tells you, "Well, it's a Hanbali position," say, "Look, I'm from Missouri. Show me." Okay, you got to show me. I need to see that written down. People just can't tell you that this is from the Hanbali school and not tell you where it is. You need to see the book, you need to see the section, and you need to see the words. Don't say, well, Sheikh so-and-so said in a lecture. No, I don't know who Sheikh so-and-so is. What I need to do is see the text, because if it's a Hanbali position, then it's in a text somewhere. So I need to see the text or the commentary on the text that discusses this issue. So that's what you need to do. And then 9 times out of 10, people are like, "Oh, well, it's a little hot in here, isn't it?" You know, and they kind of run away because they don't really have any text to support what they're talking about. You know, it's okay for traditional people to say, you know, where's your dalil? You know, yeah, if you have a Hanbali scholar in the UK, ask him. I have a good friend of mine named Musa Ferber. He's a Hanbali scholar himself. He's actually probably the only American that I know of that has the ability to pass fatwa. He studied a long time. He studied in Portland, Oregon for a while. And then he moved to Syria and studied in Damascus. And then he went to Egypt and he used to work with the Majlis of Fatawa. And now he's in Abu Dhabi working. And you know, I'll definitely put out a question to him as well and find out what he has to say about that. But anyway, so mashallah. So, but yeah, I would be interested. But Ronak, I would very much encourage you to ask the scholar and then ask him to give explanation. Don't just ask for the question and just to get the blanket answer. Ask for some. Try and develop some discussion around that so that you can get a good idea. Okay. All right. Take it to mom. Oh, okay. Bring it in here. So, I think that's an important thing. Um, Leave her alone. Just leave her alone. Amira! Leave her alone. Then walk away. Amina, I said walk away. I'm sorry about that. You know, if you have children, you understand what I'm going through. Anyways, unfortunately, that's on tape. Oh my goodness. Anyways, inshallah, if you have our next lesson, no problem. If he says it is sufficient, then la best. This is the way that Habib Ahdal, he showed me how to make when he said, when we make the wiping over the footgear or wiping over the hoofs, this is the way he showed us we had to do it. But if the Reliance says it, then I'm not going to argue with the Reliance. I can only give you what I know. But if they say it, alhamdulillah. So no problem. Now, okay, mashallah, alhamdulillah. Tayyib. So, moving on then. Okay, just make sure I answer all the questions. So anyways, so moving right along, we're going to talk now about faslan. We say what? Ma'al qalil. Okay? Ma'al qalil. Okay, what is ma'al qalil? Or measurements of water? We say ma'al qalil wa kathir in Arabic, right? We say faslan ma'al kathir, qalil wa kathir. Wa qalil, what is a little bit of water? Qalil means little. So what is a little bit of water? He says, Ma'duna kullatain. Okay? We're talking about water that is less than 216 liters. Okay? So what is less than 216 liters? 216 liters is approximately 57 gallons of water. Okay? Now, for us, that live in America, if you want to try and figure out how much is 57 gallons, you know those garbage cans that you have to take out and put out in the middle of the street, and those of you who live in California, I think those cans, those big green ones that you have to put out, where you can put some recycling, like your plastics in one and your other garbage in another one, those big green ones, those are what we call those big cans are about 64 gallons, right? So we're talking about a little less than, we're talking about maybe we said 64, so 7 gallons less than those is a kul, right? Kula. But we're talking about a kulatain. The kulatain means 2 kulas, right? So we're talking about less than that. So if there's less than 57 gallons of water or 216 liters of water, then we're talking about a small amount of water. If it is more than that, then we're talking about ma kathir, right? A lot of water, literally speaking. So what do we do with ma qalil? Ma qalil, the ruling with using water that's less than 216 liters. Excuse me, my daughter's crying. I need to go get her. One moment, please, everyone. I'm so sorry. Okay, this is what happens when you take a nap after Asr. Okay. So that is a akulatain. Akula ma khalil is less than what? 216 liters of water. Now, as he goes on in the text, he says that in order to use water that is less than 216 liters of water, like 213, 214, or even smaller, because nobody's really making wudu out of big vessels like that. I mean, unless you live in a place where that kind of thing is done. Uh, in order to use it, you have to make sure that that water is not what? Made najis. I mean, there's no najasa in the water. Okay? Because even if the smallest amount of najis, right, of filth, gets into the water, you can't use it to make wudu. You can use it to rinse off anything else, you know. If you want to be bold and brave and drink it, whatever, you could. But the reality is that for wudu, for purification purposes, you cannot use that water. Okay? So what do we mean by najis? Anything like urine, even a drop of urine. If a drop of urine gets in it, can't use it. If a drop of blood gets in it, can't use it. Right? If you found like a little dead animal in it, except there's exceptions to that. If you had, like, say for instance, any creature, be it insect or animal, that does not bleed, right? Meaning, like some animals, every creature has blood. But we're talking about blood that just spills out. Like, you know, when you see in the movie somebody got shot and they lay on the ground, and all of a sudden this big pool of blood comes out of nowhere, right? Just comes out from the wound, right? That's running blood. But there's some creatures that if you kill it, the blood doesn't run. And that's what we're talking about. So if the creature is killed or dies, and it's the kind of creature that the blood doesn't just splatter and doesn't like run, then if that creature died in your water or fell or have some reason fell into the water can still be used. You just have to remove it. Like, for instance, like a frog, right? You can smash a frog and the blood's not gonna go all over the place. You might, if you stick a firecracker and blow it up, maybe. But the thing is like if you took a brick and hit it and stuff like that, you'll kill it, but the blood won't splatter all over the place. Or the same thing like with geckos or other lizards, right? Or flies, right? Or in some cases, for some people, roaches. Okay? But anyways, you know, these things, if you killed, like for instance, if they were killed and they fell into your water, then they don't make the water najis unless you threw it in there, right? So let's say, for instance, you had, like, there was a fly and you caught it in your hand, right? You just that quick or that super speed, and then you open your hand and the fly was in there dead, and you just did like that. You just kind of to get it off your fingers, and that fly just dropped into your water, right? If it drops into your water like that, then you can't use the water. It's najis. It's mutanajis. The water is mutanajis and cannot be used. Okay? However, you know, the lifespan of a fly is only about 3 days anyway. So let's say the fly was buzzing around, bzzz, and it just got us the third day, last hour, bzzz, 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 and it just died and dropped right into your water. Your water is not considered najis. Okay? If you were in another room and you came into the room and you looked and you saw a dead roach in your water, or a dead fly, or a dead lizard, or a dead frog, or any other thing like any of these things I'm mentioning, a beetle or something like that, or a grasshopper that was dead in your water, or a spider, your water is not najis, and you don't know how it got in there. Your water is not considered najis, and you can use it. However, if you saw like some of the kids playing with some dead animal, and they took a stick and they flicked the stick up, they flicked the animal up with the stick, just, you know, and the little dead animal, the little dead body just went flying all over the place and fell into your water, well then your water is considered najis. But if you didn't know it and you use the water anyway, your wudu is still sound. Okay? Now, or let's say you killed a gecko up on the wall, just took a shoe and smashed him, got him good, right? And he stuck to the wall, right? And then after a little while, he just kind of the weight of the body just drops it, and he just falls right off the wall into your water. Your water is not considered najis because it's stuck to the wall. However, if you smash the wall, the lizard up on the wall, and let's say, for instance, it stuck to the shoe a little bit and then fell out the shoe into the water is considered mutanajis, and you can't use it. Okay? So water is permissible to use, right, less than 216 liters, so long as the water doesn't become najis. Okay? But like the few things that I mentioned are what we call afu, right? Afu. Let me write that. It's called afu, which means it's excused. You know, afu, like we say afwan, right? Afu. We're saying what is what? Excused. Now, tell you. So if you have like a pouletane, and let's say you came out, it was outside, and you came in, and some cat was thrown into it, and the guts were all busted out. Well, chances are somebody threw that in there, so you wouldn't use that water for wudu. Right? Now, al-ma kathir, right? A lot of water, or water that is what? 216 liters, or 57 gallons and on. So it's at exactly 216 liters, and it's more, right? Then that water can be used also unless it becomes najis. So bottom line is, all water can be used so long as there's not what? It doesn't have any najasa, any filth in it. However, the ruling is different depending upon the amount of water. Okay? Because even with the small amount of water that's less than 216 liters, they say even if like some najasa got in it, and let's say for instance you are just one of these asinine, like these little anal people, not asinine, but you're an anal person, and you like to weigh your water. So you weigh the water, and you notice that the water is, let's say, the water weighs 2 pounds. And then you decide before you made your wudu, you stuck it in there, and you weighed it again. All of a sudden it's 2.5 pounds or 3 pounds. Well, what does that tell you? Something has added water to it. And you know nobody's added water to the sink. Maybe one of the animals urinated in it. Maybe a pet did, or maybe one of the kids did. Right? Urinated in the water, maybe one of the little kids did it, or something like this. Well, at that point, you know that there's something wrong here, and therefore you can't use the water because why? There is filth in it. Either you notice it by what? Either seeing it or by weight. But nobody really weighs their water. But now, when we're talking about a lot more water, right? 216 liters or 57 gallons of water or more, it has a different ruling. Even though if najis gets in it, you still can't use the water. However, there's a specific type of najasa or something that has to happen to the water in order for you to know that, or for you to say that this water has najasa. And what are those conditions? That water has changed in color, it has changed in taste, or it's changed in smell. And it doesn't have to be all three. It can be any one. Right? We say kulu or jam. A jamia. This is individual. It doesn't have to be jama'. Jama' means it has to be all three. Kull means it can be just any one of the three. So now, so let's say, for instance, you've got 57 gallons of water. Let's say you got a great big old tub of water. Let's say you got like a little small jacuzzi that carries more than 57 gallons of water. And you want to use it, like, say, for instance, you could use it to wash clothes, right? You could use it to, like, if you have small children, children wet the bed all the time, right? You could use that water to clean out your clothing, right? Now, let's say, for instance, brothers, you're getting ready to go make wudu, and you got yourself that little pool made outside in the backyard because you want to be able to have a little wudu area outside, right? You just love to go outside and just dip your hands in the water, and that feels great, right? And let's say your wife decided, well, you know what, we got some pee-pee clothes, and we want to wash those pee-pee clothes, and we don't want to use the washing machine. We just want to just rinse them out real quick before I stick them in the washing machine. So instead of rinsing them out in the sink, she jumps out in your little pool, right? Your little pool for wudu, which is more than 57 gallons or more. Now, you say to yourself, well, wait a minute now, I can't use the water. You got to do the check. So you go over to the water and you look. Does it change in color? Do you see a color change? No. You smell it? Does it smell any different? Does it smell like pee? No. Now you got to be bold and daring. Does it taste like pee? No, it don't taste like pee. Well, then guess what? You can use the water. That'd have to be a lot of pee in those clothes to make the water change in smell or in color or in taste. I say this because, like, one time when we were in Turin, we all went swimming. And in Turin, when you go to the swimming pools there, they don't put chlorine in the water. It's just water. And what they do is usually drain the water out after everybody uses it, because these pools you hire out, or the one that the Habib Omar owns, even still, they pour all the water out, they drain it. So whenever somebody wants to go swim, they have to know ahead of time, so they fill it up with fresh water. So now this one brother decides, because he had a lot of small children who all wet the bed, they have these little thin mattresses that are about maybe 3 inches thick, about 6 feet long, and he decides to bring 3 of them to wash them out in the pool. So we're all in the pool swimming, and this brother starts throwing all the mattresses into the swimming pool, and then jumps in with them. And we're like, wait a minute, what are you doing? So yeah, man, my daughter's been peeing in the mattresses, and we just want to, wash them out real quick. Needless to say, everybody was like, what? Everybody jumps out the pool. But the reality is, if you understand your fiqh, the water has not become tainted, because it was too much water for it to truly become tainted. Now, if you're one of those little medical people, or those people who are real fastidious about filth and germs, your thought process is going to be, okay, that water is going to spread out. It's going to spread out. But even though the particles, by the time it spreads out completely throughout the pool, they will be destroyed, if not gone. But your thinking still is, oh, wait a minute, this is still disgusting. And that was pretty much how we all felt. So I don't think anybody swam the rest of the day, except for the brother who threw them things in there. But nonetheless, I'll repeat the story. Well, actually, I'll be sending you later the recording. I don't want to repeat that story again. It's kind of nasty to me. But anyways, the thing is that when you have 57 gallons of water or more, we're talking like swimming pool size, the size of a lake, the size of a river. We're talking about the size of the ocean, right? All of these places you can make wudu, and these places are all tahir, meaning they're all pure, right? Unless it changes in color, smell, or taste by something that is what? Najis. Okay? Now, let's say you saw some animal or some human being urinating in the water, and that urine happened to be clear. Because as we know, not all urine has that yellowish color, and not all urine has a smell. But still, urine, regardless of color, smell, or taste, it is still najas. So now, even though you saw this person urinate in your 57 gallons of water or more, right? The reality is that you cannot use that water, right? Because what happens is, unless of course we're talking about an ocean or a river or a lake or something the size of a swimming pool. But let's say, for instance, your bathtub, you're using water coming out of your bathtub, or you got a thing in the house that's more than 216 liters, okay? And someone urinated in it, and again, the urine was clear. Well, because we know that it's najas, the water automatically takes on the characteristics, say, in terms of color, like that of saffron, which is yellow, or the taste of vinegar, which is bitter, or the what is it? The smell of musk, right, which has a deep smell. Okay, Hamid saw a meteorite crash. Oh, don't get too close, brother. And we've seen enough alien movies to know what's going to happen. And don't touch it thinking you're going to get superpowers either. All right? You might turn into a great big old plant. That's right. You're absolutely right, Abdul Muhammad. There is a difference between water that is pure and water that is what? Purifying. Okay? And you're right. Pure, okay, well, that's not really for this text. And the next text we get into, we're going to talk about the different levels of water, right? The types of water that can be used and the categories for the water that can or cannot be used. And so, no, you're fine. That's not a problem. But you're right. Like some things that are pure but are not purifying, like say for instance, tea. Tea is pure, but it's not purifying. Why? Because it's no longer called water anymore. So if you got a hot cup of water and you put the tea bag in it, right? That water is no longer called water. It's called tea. It's pure, but it's not purifying. You may feel good going down, but it's not what? Purifying. Kool-Aid, or Crystal Light, or any of these little powder drinks. You put the powder in the water, you stir it up, it's no longer called water. It's pure, but it's not purifying. Okay? And likewise, when you, but like say for instance, the water you get out the tap is pure, and it's also what? Purifying. It can be used for purifying, is the point. So long as the name of the water is not changed, meaning something happens to it where it's no longer called water, like we just said about tea, then it's pure and it's also purifying. But if something is introduced to the water and changes its essence, its context, then it's no longer considered water. It's called whatever it's called. So that's pretty much what that means. Now, are they in the oven? Go turn it off. All right. So, ma kathir and ma khalil. So here's an interesting situation. You're out in the woods. You're camping. You're out in the barrio. You're camping, and you've got water flowing. Okay. And as you're going, the water is flowing, but then there are areas where the water is maybe this high off the ground, and then it flows down, it flows down, it flows down, and then the land dips. The land dips, and it's like really deep, and the water that fills up in that area is more than what? 57 gallons of water. Now, if, let's say, for instance, you're going to make wudu by the river, by the little stream, right? The stream of water that's coming down. You go by the water to make your wudu. and you happen to notice this gazelle, this deer or buffalo or whatever, starts urinating. Starts urinating in the water. Well, could you make wudu in the water in the stream? And let's say the gazelle is ahead of you, it's like downstream, but you see it and you saw him urinating, and the water is coming down to where you are. Can you make wudu in that water? Well, the answer to that is, in the small part of the stream, no. Because why? It's less than what? 216 liters of water. And the urine is just flowing down along with it. But when you get to the area where it's deep, right? We mentioned the part where it gets deep. Could you make wudu in that section? Yes, you can. Because why? That urine doesn't change anything for that water. So again, for the small bit of water, it doesn't matter about smell, taste, or color. What matters is the fact that it's present. So when you get to the big body of water, the 57 gallons or more, then the presence of najas doesn't make the difference. What makes the difference is, does the water change in smell, does the water change in taste, or does it change in color? Now, if you were, let's say for instance, you were, you were by a riverbank, and you stepped into the water to make wudu, and then all of a sudden, because the mud got rustled up because you started walking into the water, now the water has turned brown. Can you still use that water for wudu? Yes. Why? Because the mud and everything, that's a natural part of it. It's already there. It's a natural part of that body of water. So the thing is, if you stir up the mud in the water and it all turns brown, you can still make the wudu or the ghusl, whichever one you have to make. It doesn't. You don't have to worry about that being a consideration. Now you asked the question, Abu Musa. So you don't take the river as a whole, but in sections. Only if you know that the river has sections, because you may never know. And if you know that there's some parts of the river where you can stand, right? And we're not talking about like there's a little bit of rock, like there's a little bit of rock that goes like there's water here, there's a little bit of rock here, and then right there's a stop, and everything else is real deep. So right here is the area. Well, and especially if this is the only rock, like this is the platform. So on this side is deep, on this side is deep, on this side is deep. It's just right here where you can walk up to, and that's it. Okay? In that case, it's still kind of the whole body of water, in a sense. What I'm saying is, we're talking about land where water is rushing down and keeping. But now, if you happen to know that there's a large section of the river where the water is really high, really low, meaning the water level is low from the ground, right? So here's the water, this is the ground, and you know that it's really low and it extends for a certain point of time, then you're correct. You take it by sections. Otherwise, the river as a whole, right, is what has to be filthy. But now remember this, if we think about this logically, even if the water was like this, and you saw a little najasa floating around on top of that little small section, and then you were to like start kicking the water or waving the water, and then it just kind of floated off to the side and went to the deeper end, you can still make wudu right there and then, because that part is part of the whole body of water. You understand? And likewise, if the color changed, well, the color is going to disseminate because it's going out into the massive part of the body of water. All right? Now, that all changes if, say, for instance, somebody dams up the water, or somebody sets up blockades in the water to regulate the water in different blockades, and each blockade is like less than 216 liters of water. If that happens, then absolutely, if that section becomes najas, you can't make wudu in that section. You go to the next section. If they block it off like that. Does that make sense to you? I mean, was that clear to everybody, or did that sound kind of crazy? Okay, I'm there now. Tell you. So, that is ma kathir wa ma qalil. right? The water measurements. So, are there any questions about this section before we move on to Wussel? It's time to wake up. Anyone? Anyone got a question? Okay. Okay. Bismillah, Abu Musa. No. You cannot make wudu in chlorine water. Meaning, let me rephrase that, let me say this. In a swimming pool, no. We know that the water that we drink, right, no, alhamdulillah, all questions are welcome, and it's good to bring up whatever questions. So, you know, Umar ibn Khattab said that knowledge begins with a good question. So there's no such thing as a bad question, or no, you can't say good question. He said all knowledge begins with a question. So there's no such thing as a stupid question. Just ask the question, because you never know, somebody else may benefit from what you might have to ask. Yes. That's what he just asked. And the answer is no. So you can't make ghusl, or you can't make wudu in the swimming pool here in the United States or most other places where they're using chlorine in the water. Because again, it's a bacteria, it's a drug. And see, by the fact that you have to say chlorine water suggests that it's not just water. And like we just had, like Abu Muhammad, he asked a question about water. There's water that is pure, and there's water that is pure and it purifies. And the condition for that is that it does not change in name, right? The water does not change in name. So, if you have to say chlorine water or chlorinated water, then the question is pretty much answered in and of itself by the definition of the water that you're asking about. So you cannot use chlorinated water to make wudu. Okay? In seawater, yes, you can use seawater. Why? Because the salt is a natural aspect of the water. If it were like water coming off the mountainside, right? You know, in the mountains, you have water coming down, spring water, and sometimes the rocks themselves that the water rolls over is natural, it has salt in it. And so when the water rolls over those rocks, salt is being introduced to the water. And in that case, you can't make wudu in that water. Why? Because it's salty water. But that salt is not a natural, it's not from the natural essence of the water, like the water in the ocean. So the ocean water, or the sea water, is salty, be that. I mean, it's the essence of the water to be salty, right? Nothing was introduced to it to make it salty. It's just salty. So that being the case, yeah, you can use seawater as water that can be used for wudu. Is the water in najis if you have to make wudu in a lake, but the whole lake has changed color, but you're not sure if it's feces, urine, or if it's the trees and plants. That changed color. Okay, so good question to a degree. No, I'm just kidding. Question was asked, if the water in the lake has changed color because, like, say, plants have been in it, like a bunch of leaves have died in the water and changed the color, or there's certain grass reeds that are growing out of the water and has made it green or something like that, right? The reality, just like what I was saying with the mud, the water can still be used because this is something that is natural. So these things don't necessitate or do not cause the water to become non-purifying. You can still use that water. So it's not a problem. You can still use that water for wudu. Okay? And the second part of his question was, what if you were unsure if it were urine or fecal matter in the water? Well, here's the thing. It would take a lot of urine, a whole lot of urine, in order to cause a whole lake to become najas. I mean, I hate to see the creature that put out that much urine, or creatures. Maybe the juju, but nonetheless. And if you were to go and you wanted to make wudu in the water, lake water, and you saw some fecal matter just floating around in the area that you wanted to make wudu, well, you better just walk to another spot and make wudu, right? Or you get your stick and kind of push it away, and that kind of thing, and make sure all the little flakes, whatever else is floating around, get it all out the way, and then go ahead and make your wudu. You know, even though you may find it nasty or whatever, if you feel you can't do that, because Sharia-wise, it's okay. But if you feel like you can't do it because it's just too gross to you, then just go to another section of the lake and make your wudu. Tayyib. Abu Musa, I realize that it relates to used water, which is outside the scope of the text, okay? I.e., if water splashes back into the vessel you made it from and is less than a qulatan, you can't use that for wudu. Absolutely correct. And that's what we were talking about when we first started talking about wudu, making the fard of the wudu, right? The fard of the wudu. So if you have water in your chin and it dripped into your container that's less than 216 liters or 57 gallons of water, then you're absolutely right. You cannot use that water again. However, if you're making the sunnah wudu and it's like the second wash or the third wash and water drips off, then that water is not used water or ma'a musta'mal, right? You can use that water still. Okay? Tell you, Osama, in Chicago, you cannot use tap water without chlorine in the water. Okay, thank you, because that was the second part of what I was going to mention. Is that, and Ronak, you're welcome. Many of the ulama say that the levels of chlorine that we use here, or that we find in the water, is not the same as what you would find in a swimming pool. So, therefore, you could use that water, right? They say you could use that water. However, if the levels of chlorine are that great, and which some cases there are, right, then it's better for you to go get, buy drinking water just for your wudu. If the levels of chlorine are just that strong, meaning after you've drinking the water, you can still feel the chlorine inside your body as well as in your taste buds, right, in your mouth, the residue that's left in your mouth. If the residue left in your mouth was chlorine, then you know that you cannot, one, you shouldn't be drinking the water anymore, and two, you have to make wudu with a different set of water. Now, and I'll double check on that to make sure, but I do believe to the best of my ability that what I'm saying is absolutely 100% correct. But we'll double check just to make sure, inshallah. So you, right. All right, ghusl. Okay. Well, actually, it's almost 9 o'clock, and I'm going to have to go pray Maghrib. So we'll save ghusl for next class, inshallah. I'm going to say this. Regardless if you start your fast tomorrow or if you start on Thursday, the next time we meet, we will all be fasting, inshallah ta'ala. And I want you to remember this. May or may not have said this before, but those of you who know me know I say this all the time, and I say it every year, and I said I'll probably say it for the rest of my life until we all make some really serious changes, and especially me myself. The poet once said, he said, "Al-Eid laysa liman yalbasu jadid, Al-Eid liman ta'atuhu yazid." Okay? He said that the Eid is not for the person who wears new clothes.
It's 9 o'clock.
Meaning that their Eid is not a time for people just to kind of celebrate, oh, we can eat again, or we can put on clothes, or we can go back to doing what we used to do, or we can start, hanging out like we were hanging out. We can kick it like we used to kick it. All these kind of things. That's not what the Eid is about. It's not about going to people's houses and eating. It's not about the fellowship that we understand in the way many of us have practiced it, right? It's like, because it becomes reduced to the fact that people, like even after the salat is over, people just get up and start walking around and talking instead of listening to the khutbah, not realizing that the khutbah is actually taking the place of the two other rakats that we have, just like in Jummah prayer. So instead of praying 4 rakats, we pray 2 and then we have the khutbah. So the thing is that many of us neglect paying attention to the khutbah because we're just ready to be out and talk to people and hang out and talk about, oh man, my fast was hard. Oh, I struggled this year. Oh, subhanAllah, alhamdulillah, brother, let me get that cheeseburger. Oh, brother, pass me that curry. Oh, brother, let me get some of them slices of pizza. Oh, I need to get that Philly cheese steak, right? I need some sancocho. I need some manfungo, right? I need a la bandura, all right? Bandera, excuse me. You're always looking for them extra things, right? So some mango, right? That's good, right? So the thing is that people, that's my little Dominican joke. Only if you know what mango is, you understand what I'm talking about. But anyways, so the thing is that you have all these, that's what people celebrate. That's what their Eid has been reduced to. But what he says is, in the second part of the poem, he says that the Eid is for the person who has increased themselves in worship. Okay? He says the Eid is for the one that has increased himself in worship, meaning that what we're celebrating during the Eid is the increase of worship and the closeness and the connection that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we're celebrating. Because during this month of Ramadan, and the reason why I didn't stop the class is because we're supposed to increase ourselves in worship. Our studying, inshallah, with the proper intention, and hopefully everyone has made a good intention before the class started, is that this is worship. We're doing this for the sake of Allah. We're doing this with the intent of learning how to perfect our worship to Allah. So that being the case, when we are doing this, the studying, when you're praying that Tarawih, and just real quickly on Tarawih, whether you pray 8, whether you pray 20, who cares? The important thing is that you're doing more than you would have done outside of the month of Ramadan. So if all you pray is 2 rakats extra, Allahu Akbar. If you pray 4 rakats, Allahu Akbar. So let's just do away with this. Do we do 8? Do we do 20? Do we do 8? Do we do 20? Who cares? We're doing more. And the person who increases their acts of worship to Allah, the more barakah they receive. Bottom line. So we increase ourselves in the worship. So that when we do come to the month of, the time of Eid, in the month of Shawwal, when the Eid comes in, we want to be able to worship how Allah blessed us. We want to celebrate how Allah blessed us to be able to increase ourselves in worship. How we spent more time in prayer and dhikr and recitation of Quran. How we spent more time doing salams on the Prophet ﷺ, reading the seerah. We read tafsir. We went through things that were going to help us to develop our character, and how we really tried to develop our character by staying away from lying and backbiting and cheating and deceiving and causing enmity between people and getting upset with folks and all these other different things. So this is the point that we want to remove ourselves from, so that we have a complete fast inwardly as well as outwardly. And inshallah, may Allah bless us to be of those people who increase ourselves in worship, be of those people who improve our character, be of those people who develop ourselves inwardly and outwardly, so that we can find that nadr, right? That look, the glance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us, doing something that what He finds pleasurable. Because as Allah says in the Hadith al-Qudsi, He says that all acts of worship are for Bani Adam, but the fasting is for me. Because this is an intimate aspect of worship that nobody else knows that you're doing except you and Allah. You would never know if I were fasting. during the month of Ramadan. You know, I could be losing weight just because I went on a different diet. I've been working out. I could be looking all tired because I've been up late watching TV. But Allah knows. And this is a piece of work or a piece of worship that is solely between, is an intimate time that you have, that we have between ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outside of prayer. Outside of prayer, this is the most intimate time that we have with Allah, because our fast is for His sake and His sake alone, and we should be doing those things to facilitate the development of ourselves spiritually. And so I encourage you to read as much Quran as you can. If you don't finish the Quran, so what? Just read it. Your eyes should look at the Quran at least once a day, even if it's just one ayah. Recite a lot of dhikr, or send salams upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Spend a lot of time, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah, as the Prophet said in a hadith, that the best dhikr is La ilaha illallah. So spend time saying La ilaha illallah as much as you can remember, and really try and stay away from things that are going to cause you to fall into the displeasure of Allah. Watch your eyes, your tongue, your ears, and everything else. And may Allah bless all of us to be of those people who find closeness to Him during this month. And may Allah bless us to be of those people who will be able to worship, not worship, but celebrate worship at the end of this blessed month that's coming, and that is here for some. And we ask and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will soothe our hearts and ease our burdens during this month. These days are hot and they're long, so may Allah increase us in the efforts that we make. You know, not Habib, but Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he used to say, Uhibbu thalatha ashya. He said, qatlu bisayf, wa sawm bisayf, wa akramu adaif. And actually it's the other order. Akramu adaif, wa sawm bisayf, wa qatlu bisayf. He said, I love to honor my guests. I love to fast during the summer. And I love to kill with my sword. But we're talking about the middle one. Sawm be safe. He used to love to fast during these long days. Why? Because the more trials, the more blessings. And for the one who can engage himself or herself so much so in their worship that they don't even notice it, Allahu Akbar. And may Allah bless us to be of those people that we're not concerned about the heat. We're not concerned about the struggles. We're not concerned about how long the day is and the work and how my stomach pains and all this, that, and the other. May Allah allow us to concern ourselves. I haven't read enough Quran. I don't feel like I prayed with enough presence. I don't feel as though that I spent enough time reading about the Seerah or the history of Islam. I don't feel like I did anything. I didn't do anything today to get closer to Allah outside of my fast. And during my fast, I didn't really do anything to help facilitate and aid my fast by becoming closer to Allah. May Allah bless us to be of those people who are concerned about these things, not about, oh, my stomach hurts, my back hurts, my head hurts because I haven't had any food, or it's so hot out here. May Allah bless us to concern ourselves with those things that are that are going to help us for the hereafter. And may Allah bless you guys and have mercy, and thank you for taking a little extra time to listen to me at this little end. I'm jumping off my soapbox, and inshallah, please keep me in your dua during this blessed month, and I will definitely be making dua for all of you. And inshallah, may we see you all again on Thursday, inshallah, in the best of spirits, worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in fast and in other actions as well. And may Allah make your intensify your worship, and may He make everything that you do during this month deeper than it was ever before, so that at the end of this month, may Allah bless us all to have one of the best Eids we've ever had, because we're going to celebrate worship. Ya Rahman Rahimeen, Ya Rahman Rahimeen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And to Shaheed real quick, no, there's nothing you can do to purify water once it's been like changed. So if it becomes like tea, You can't purify that. If it becomes Kool-Aid, you can't purify that, right? If some najasa falls into it, you can pull it out, so long as it doesn't break up and it's just like all up inside the drink or the water, then alhamdulillah. But outside of that, there's really not much you can do to purify water, inshallah. And so we'll talk more about it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.